very recently, Tim Cook, who is the CEO of Apple, actually went and visited the Sony imaging sensor plant, and he went with the CEO of Sony. This is really big because basically they confirmed after a decade that they've actually been using Sony sensors. I think most people knew that. It was kind of not necessarily a secret, but it's not necessarily something that they've ever said before, and I'm wondering if this is signaling, let's just say, a greater partnership. But I will go over the article first, and then we can kind of go into, I would say, my conspiracy theory of what could possibly be going on between Apple and Sony. So here, this is on Twitter. It says, we've been partnering with Sony for over a decade to create the world's leading camera sensors for iPhone. Thanks to Ken and everyone on the team for showing me around the cutting edge facility in Kumamoto today. Kumamoto, am I saying that right? Kumamoto, I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that. I apologize. So this is the picture here. They have the leading lines that are doing it. He's showing them the iPhone. But this is really interesting that they would choose now to go over this. Now we have a 9 to 5 Mac. This is also really cool because I've been talking about this sensor. I've hoped that it was going to be coming to the mirrorless cameras first, but it's possible that it is going to be coming iPhones first, and it makes sense as well. So the report claims Sony's latest sensor technology roughly doubles the saturation single level in each pixel, so it delivers higher dynamic range than existing iPhone camera systems. The report goes on to explain that Sony's latest sensor tech uses a new semiconductor architecture which places photoiododes and transistors in separate substrate layers, and it's allowing the sensor to add more photodiodes to the dedicated layers. We heard about this sensor, I think it was about 8 months back. We heard about them having a breakthrough. This is a new type of stack sensor that, if it doubles light saturation, if this is the same one that I believe that they're talking about here, it's doubling the light saturation, also meaning it's going to be doubling the low light performance. And for it to be doing that, on a sensor that's probably going to be the size of, I'm not going to flick everybody off, but it's the size of your middle finger, nail. It makes sense for them to be trying to double the low light that you get out of it. And I guess theoretically speaking, depending on how many megapixels that they're going to be using, you're looking at like a 1-inch sensor worth of light, if that's true. So that's super cool. I would love to see that come to a full frame sensor. I think it's a way of Sony actually having like 8K in, say, an S4, A7 S4 or an FX3 Mark II. If they're going to go the 8K route and follow Canon's lead in that, and also, Red's lead, then I think it would be very smart for them to add this type of technology, because they really have been great about low light performance. But this gets me into, I would say, a conspiracy theory, and not everybody would even like this idea. I actually had a video, my April 1st video that I did, and it said that Apple was going to buy Sony's imaging division. And I said it was going to be for $68.9 billion for obvious reasons, anyways, you could figure it out. For childish reasons, I said it was going to be $68.9 billion. Most people didn't get fooled by the April Fool's joke, and I was kind of joking for sure, but I do think that this image kind of raises the possibility that what if Apple just completely bought Sony? And it makes a lot of sense for multiple reasons. There was rumors going around that it was possible for them to buy Disney, considering that Disney's market cap went really far down. The reason that they would want to buy Disney in general is for their movie library, and they're really trying to go after the streaming in the Apple, what they have, the Apple TV app, and they, there was kind of the idea that maybe they would buy it. But the problem with that is that when you're buying Disney, you're really not just buying a streaming service and a movie company. You're buying a brand that's really about theme parks, cruise ships, a lot of travel. And that's somewhere that Apple hasn't played in at all. But if you go to Sony, Sony right here has a market cap of $99 billion as of right now. This is something that Apple could easily do. I think they're like $1.8 trillion market cap. They could definitely afford it. Now, some people will say that Sony's not going to be up for sale, and it is a Japanese company, so there might be some conflicts there. And I'm not even sure that the current FTC would allow this. But if they did, this makes a whole lot of sense. The reason being is they're already partnered up with the sensor, so that makes sense on the camera side for them to bring them into the fold. That would give them a lot of benefits for the Sony actual cameras. You would get maybe an M1 chip or some of the actual really high processing chips that are in their newer computers. So you're going to get some crazy video performance out of your cameras. You could pretty much dominate that market. They're also really good with menus. And so I could really see the benefit of having a much better menu in Sony cameras. Now, people could think that Apple could ruin it, and it's possible, but I definitely think you would get a much better menu system and a much higher performing camera with Apple chips. But the reason that Apple would want to use it, not necessarily even saying that they would want to be in the camera industry, but they could use their optics system as well as their sensor to really hone in with their smartphones. The other thing that they really get out of this is they get an amazing library of movies and a great history of movie properties that they could bring on to Apple TV. And unlike what would happen with Disney, where you would have all the added headaches of a cruise line company and all the different theme parks, you also get, which is another huge thing, is Sony is big. I mean, it's the biggest player in the market of video games, or at least the biggest console player. And that's something that Apple just hasn't been able to crack for a long time either, is gaming, and they've been wanting to because it's such a huge market. They have Apple Arcade that is very big, but it's not very prestigious as far as that goes in the video game market. There've been rumors that they could go into the console market. To me, if I'm Apple, I want to buy Sony. Whether Sony wants to sell or what the logistics would be if the FTC would even approve of this, I don't know. I'm not even saying it's a good idea for all the consolidation, but if I'm Apple, if I'm Tim Cook, I'm there talking to the CEO of Sony saying, hey, let me put in an offer, or let's kind of flirt around with even more market integration, and let's see if there's a possibility of an acquisition in the future. That's what I'm doing, because Sony as a company pretty much checks off all the boxes of industries that Apple's looking to go into. They're doing VR. It would be having extra sensors with VR, extra technology that way, better optics with the lenses. It makes a lot of sense for Apple. Sony, people might say they're not for sale. But in general, if you're a publicly traded company, I'm not sure how the logistics works in Japan, but you have a fiduciary responsibility to your stockholders. So if they're giving you a really good price, that would be up to them more than just any individual. So I think it's an interesting idea. I made the one thing as a joke. Drop in the comment section below and let me know, am I completely crazy for thinking that there might be something there for Tim Cook to just completely come out of the blue after a decade and actually give up the fact that they are using Sony sensors officially? Is there something there, or am I completely mad? Is there reasons why this isn't even a possibility that I'm not thinking of? Drop in the comment section below and let me know. Do you think it would be a good idea? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Is it a real thing? Is it a possibility?